It was nearing midnight when Jack's car rolled into the old gas station, the engine sputtering like it was on its last breath. The station sat in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of empty highway and thick woods. Jack had been driving for hours, and his eyelids were heavy with exhaustion. He needed fuel, and the flickering neon sign was the only beacon of civilization for miles. The station itself was dilapidated, almost like it had been forgotten by time. The paint peeled from the walls, the windows were coated in grime, and the single pump looked like it hadn't been touched in years. But there were lights on inside, a soft glow coming from behind the dirty windows, and that was enough to convince Jack to stop. As he stepped out of his car, a strange chill settled in the air. The night was quiet, too quiet, with not even the distant sound of crickets to break the eerie silence. Jack shrugged it off as road fatigue and walked towards the pump. He lifted the nozzle, but nothing happened. No click, no gas, just silence. Cursing under his breath, Jack approached the small building, hoping someone was inside. As he got closer, he noticed the windows weren't just dirty, they were smeared with handprints. Long, streaky handprints that trailed down the glass like someone had been desperately trying to escape from inside. Jack hesitated but knocked on the door. "Hello? Anyone in there?" His voice echoed through the stillness. A moment passed, and then the door creaked open slightly, just enough for Jack to peer inside. The interior was dimly lit by a single hanging bulb, casting long shadows across the shelves stocked with old, dust-covered items. At the counter stood a man, or at least what Jack assumed was a man. His back was hunched, and his clothes looked old and tattered, like they hadn't been washed in years. "Need gas," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. The man turned slowly, revealing a pale face with sunken eyes that seemed to stare right through Jack. A slow, twisted smile spread across his lips. "Sure thing," the man rasped. "Go back to your car. I'll take care of it." Unnerved, Jack nodded and quickly backed out of the station, heading toward his car. As he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The handprints on the windows, the strange man, the eerie quiet, it all felt off. But he needed gas, and there was no turning back now. Back at the car, Jack waited. Minutes passed, and there was no sign of the man. Growing impatient, he turned to look at the station, only to see the figure standing at the door, motionless, staring at him with that same unsettling grin. Jack's stomach twisted with unease. Suddenly, the gas pump clicked, startling him. He turned back to see the nozzle already in his tank, fuel slowly pouring in. But the strange man hadn't moved. Jack glanced at him again, and this time, the man's smile was gone. His face was twisted into something far more sinister, an expression of pure malice. The hairs on the back of Jack's neck stood up. He quickly pulled the nozzle out and threw it back, not caring about the rest of the fuel. He wanted to leave now. As he got into the car, something caught his eye in the rearview mirror. Standing just behind the station, barely visible in the darkness, were figures. Multiple figures, all watching him. Their faces were pale, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They stood still, and naturally still, like statues frozen in time. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He slammed the door shut and started the car, the engine roaring to life. As he sped away, he glanced in the mirror again. The figures were moving now, slowly drifting towards the road, their eyes locked on him. And the man, the one from the station, was standing in the middle of them, his smile back, wider than ever. Jack drove as fast as he could, the road blurring beneath his wheels. But no matter how far he went, the eerie sensation of being watched never left him. The air felt heavy, oppressive, like something unseen was pressing down on him. Suddenly, his headlights flickered, and the car sputtered, slowing down despite his foot slamming the pedal to the floor. "No, no, no," Jack yelled, gripping the wheel tighter as the car came to a dead stop. He looked around frantically, trying to figure out what was wrong, but the gas gauge showed full. The eerie silence returned, suffocating. Jack's breath quickened. He reached for his phone, but there was no signal. Panic set in as he scanned the road ahead, but the highway was empty. Just as he was about to get out, the familiar flicker of neon lights appeared in the distance. The gas station. His heart dropped. It was impossible. He had driven miles away. Yet there it was, standing exactly as it had been when he arrived, the flickering neon sign casting an ominous glow. Jack's mind raced, trying to make sense of it, but there was no logic to what was happening. Then, from the shadows, he saw the figures, slowly drifting towards him from the station, their eyes glowing, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles. And leading them was the man, his grin wider than ever. Jack's scream echoed into the night as the figures closed in, the suffocating darkness swallowing him whole. The gas station stood in the middle of nowhere, waiting for its next visitor, another soul lost to the endless highway.